Hello everyone. Welcome to the Lightning Ball channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so and activate the notification bell. Your support fuels my continued efforts. In our previous TenSura reviews, we skipped the process in Volume 17 where Velgrynd collected Rudra's soul fragments. We will cover this part in next 4 episodes. This part of Volume 17 also involves background information about Tatsuya Kondou, Byakuya Araki, and why Kondou, one of the 3 mystic admirals, became a leader without an army. So, let's get started. This large segment of the story actually corresponded to what might have been just a brief moment in the Central World, spanning from episode 62 to episode 66. In episode 62, Rimuru successfully saved Scorched Dragon Velgrynd, and Mana's seal combined the remnants of Lord of Oath with Velgrind's ultimate skill Lord of Charity, transforming it into the more powerful Lord of Flaming God. After that, Rudra's soul dispersed, and Velgrynd, driven by the desire to find Rudra, used her new abilities to traverse countless times and worlds, relentlessly searching for fragments of her beloved Rudra's soul. The story we're about to tell unfolds in these numerous timelines and worlds. First, it's important to understand that Velgrind's ability to travel through time and space stemmed from Lord of Flaming God, which included the authorities of space-time manipulation and dimension leap. If you look closely at Velgrind's skills, you'll notice that, like Rimuru, Velgrynd also possessed the authority of time wrap. How did this differ from Rimuru's later capabilities? Essentially, there was almost no difference within a certain space and time. Velgrynd could move instantly to any place she desired, just like Mai Furuki, and even powerful. The difference lay in the computational power required for traversing time and space. Rimuru's later time wrap could break through any temporal and spatial barrier, but Velgrynd, when crossing time and space, needed guidance. Here, the fragments of Rudra's soul scattered across different times and spaces served as her guide. Velgrynd could sense these fragments and travel to the individuals who held them in various timelines and worlds. Velgrynd first arrived on a planet where civilization was just beginning to sprout, and Rudra's soul resided in a tribal leader with bronze-colored skin. This blonde youth led his tribe to establish a settlement by a great river, living by hunting from dawn to dusk. Velgrynd nonchalantly aided them by bringing rain and creating arable land. The young men shifted their focus from solely hunting to also farming, and the small tribe soon developed into a village. However, the surplus of wealth soon caught the attention of those with ill intentions. Velgrynd provided them with another boon, a disruptive innovation far beyond their level of civilization, a high-temperature furnace capable of forging iron. Thus, the blonde youth's tribe skipped the Bronze Age and turned their stone tools directly into iron. Naturally, a kingdom emerged, and the throne was passed down hereditarily. After that, Velgrynd ceased her assistance to the kingdom. The reason was simple: those who held Rudra's soul fragments often bore Rudra's traits, confident, even arrogant, yet filled with ambition and courage, and did not desire to rely excessively on Velgrind's power. Moreover, when a person bearing a Rudra soul fragment died, the fragment would return to Velgrynd, and their descendants had no connection to Rudra. Hence, Velgrynd had no reason to continue supporting them. Most of those who held Rudra's soul fragments regarded Velgrynd as a deity, which she essentially was. Her deeds were passed down through different civilizations and timelines, celebrated and worshipped for eternity. For Velgrynd, these encounters and partings were numerous as she collected one Rudra soul fragment after another. During this time, she came to understand a crucial fact: the world created by her brother, creator god Veldanava, was not limited to just the central world. While parallel worlds did not exist simultaneously, there were other dimensional worlds. Velgrynd had always known about other worlds, given that many people from different worlds appeared in the central world, such as Tatsuya Kondou, but she hadn't realized just how many there were. These worlds operated under different laws and had diverse civilizations, ranging from magic-dominated realms to worlds without magicules but with highly advanced scientific societies, and even strange, mechanized intelligences. There were worlds so fragile that Velgrynd could destroy them with a mere release of her power, and others where angels and demons waged endless wars. Each world was a unique existence. The author also reiterated a fundamental rule of TenSura. In the same world, there cannot be two identical individuals from parallel worlds. This is similar to Chloe's experience with multiple timelines, where only one Chloe could exist in each timeline unless her physical body was sealed in a spiritron-made crystal coffin. Returning to Velgrynd, she encountered numerous holders of Rudra's soul fragments, from fleet commanders and ministers of small nations to unparalleled tricksters and impoverished scientists. Most commonly, however, they were leaders of various countries or tribes. Velgrynd was often called upon during moments of crisis when these individuals faced life-and-death situations, as the soul would only emit a radiant glow during such moments. There were also times when Velgrynd did not arrive in time to save them, and some holders of Rudra's soul fragments even died in childhood. While this was sorrowful, Velgrynd accepted it as fate, seeing it as an earlier opportunity to collect Rudra's soul. She did not grieve, nor did she push this process forward, for being by the side of different Rudras brought her a peculiar and joyful experience. Thus the long years passed, and Velgrynd amassed an immense number of Rudra's soul fragments, with just one or two final pieces remaining to save him. Perhaps the next encounter, or the one after, would be the last. Following the call, Velgrynd embarked on her journey. This time, she arrived beside an elderly emperor. Faced with the sudden appearance of a strange woman in his chamber, the emperor was unfazed and instead asked who she was, demonstrating his exceptional courage. Velgrynd felt a sense of joy. First, the fact that he was an older man indicated that this journey wouldn't last long. Second, his appearance was reminiscent of that tribal leader from so long ago. What began as a casual conversation shifted abruptly when, as Velgrynd spoke, a blade appeared at her neck, aimed directly at her throat. Of course, Velgrynd didn't mind. She easily blocked the powerful anti-evil sword capable of slaying demons with her slender fingers and used her other hand to gently caress the old emperor's cheek. Velgrynd introduced herself, and the emperor, unfazed, acknowledged her display of power, likening her to a deity. The sword had been wielded by the emperor's guardian, the strongest swordsman of the nation, Gensei Araki, the current head of the hazy style. However, his blade could not harm Velgrynd at all, something Gensei found incomprehensible. Nonetheless, Gensei stood between the emperor and Velgrynd, ignoring his own safety, and ordered his disciple, Saburo Minamoto, to protect the emperor. Of course, no matter how formidable a being was, in Velgrynd's eyes, they were merely weak creatures. Velgrynd understood that the emperor before her had limited time left, and that it was natural for her to be met with distrust. However, to ensure that this Rudra soul holder spent his remaining time peacefully under her care, Velgrynd released a slight true dragon spirit haki, freezing everyone in place. Saburo Minamoto, sweating nervously, mustered the courage to question Velgrynd's identity. To him, such a powerful presence could only be the leader of the phantoms. Velgrynd paused for a moment, surprised that this world even had a concept of the phantoms. Thinking of the bothersome Fell Wei, Velgrynd couldn't help but grumble about how these types seemed to appear everywhere. Naturally, she clarified that she had no connection to the phantoms, though she wasn't entirely sure if the phantom they mentioned was the same as the one she understood. The emperor then stated that they, too, were unsure of the true nature of the phantoms, and he waved off his subordinates' protective battle plans. The emperor noted that he felt a familiar aura from Velgrynd and pointed out that her ability to bypass all security and suddenly appear beside him was something beyond anyone's capability to counter. The emperor was correct. The nation, known as the Great Japan Conquering Empire, was at war with a powerful enemy at the time, and the imperial capital was on high alert. That Velgrynd could suddenly appear next to the emperor under such conditions meant that their defenses were meaningless against her. Moreover, there was an aura about Velgrynd that made the emperor feel at ease, so he chose to trust her. The scene shifted as the emperor's orders were carried out, and Velgrynd was received as a guest. The emperor confidently remarked that he never expected, at his age, to be graced by the presence of such an extraordinary beautiful deity. Rudra's traits were still evident in this emperor. He introduced himself as Sakura Akira, assuming that his name was widely known and respected throughout the world, only to be surprised that Velgrynd did not recognize it at all. However, to Velgrynd, the emperor was Rudra, and she had no intention of addressing him otherwise. Though it was impolite, the emperor did not show any sign of anger but instead smiled and accepted it. Of course, in public, the emperor could not keep Velgrynd by his side, explaining that having an unknown individual constantly near the emperor might cause some degree of unrest. Velgrynd had no objections, as these were merely formalities. The most pressing matter now was resolving the emperor's problem, the ongoing war on the continent. In truth, the situation of the great Japan conquering empire was dire. This world had 5 major nations: the great Japan conquering empire in the east on a huge island, the United States of Azalia to the south, the great Rosium dynasty on the northern continent, the Holy Arcia Empire in the west, and the rival Chiefs Republic of China in the center. It was clear that the author of this side story used names that seemed familiar to us, though it's important to note that the terms Japan and China were names from another world. All 5 major nations across this world had been vying for supremacy, and a fragile balance was only reached a few decades prior. Although overt wars had ceased, covert struggles persisted, especially in the economic sphere, sparking further conflicts. Each country competed for its own interests, and various grievances continued to accumulate and intensify. Then, 4 years ago, a massive drought in the rival Chiefs Republic of China ignited a new war. To combat the famine and disease brought on by the drought, the Chiefs Republic of China invaded the fertile grain-producing region of the United States of Azalia. This incursion served as the spark that led the great Rosium dynasty in the north to launch an offensive against the Chiefs Republic of China. The great Japan conquering empire was then drawn into the conflict, as its grain imports were heavily reliant on the Chiefs Republic of China, leading the 2 nations to form an alliance and go to war against the northern and southern nations. Although the Holy Arcia Empire in the west initially remained uninvolved, a year later their country was struck by famine, and an accident at their oil reserve base occurred. The traces left at the scene pointed to Rosium sabotage, prompting Holy Arcia Empire to join the conflict, thus sparking a world war. At this point, Pulcinella, a holy monk of holy spiritualism, one of the 3 major religions, sensed that there was malicious manipulation behind a series of events. Various holy orders from different nations sent investigators, who eventually uncovered the existence of the phantoms. However, by then, it was too late. The fires of war, once ignited, were beyond quenching. By the time everyone realized what was happening, the conflict had escalated to an unstoppable stage. Just 2 days prior, a naval battle took place between the Grand Fleet of the United States of Azalia and the navy of the great Japan conquering empire and the sea dividing the 2 nations. The result was a decisive defeat for the great Japan conquering empire. The reason for this defeat was that the empire's fleet commander had been possessed by a phantom, who then seized control and led the fleet into betrayal. This intelligence was obtained through the self-sacrificial efforts of Gensei Araki's disciple, Tatsuya Kondou. Realizing that his power was insufficient to overcome the enemy, Kondou devoted himself to gathering information until the very end, ultimately perishing gloriously in battle against the enemy forces. Velgrynd came to understand that this was the homeland of Tatsuya Kondou, captain of the Imperial Guardians and first in the ranks. It was likely that Kondou's unwavering loyalty to Rudra stemmed from sensing the same aura in Rudra as he had in his emperor. Velgrynd finally believed in Tatsuya Kondou's genuine loyalty. On reflection, Kondou had always been haunted by regret over his failure to protect his homeland, which drove him to do whatever it took to avoid repeating that mistake. Although Velgrynd realized these things somewhat belatedly, she resolved to help this emperor and fulfill Tatsuya Kondou's unfinished mission. The emergence of the phantoms quickly threw the leadership of various nations into disarray. With no one able to confirm whether their subordinates had been possessed by a phantom, trust began to erode. To uncover the truth, extensive investigations were conducted by each nation, ultimately revealing that the phantoms were an organized race with tremendous power, operating globally in their bid for world domination. To add context, the great Japan conquering empire used the Kai system to classify the strength of monsters, which included 6 levels from top to bottom, divine Buddha, Oni dragon, evil heaven mystic, high-rank yokai, mid-rank yokai, and low-rank yokai. Among the phantoms encountered, the weakest were at the heaven mystic level. According to the assessment of the late Tatsuya Kondou, the fleet commanders of the United States of Azalea and the rival chiefs Republic of China, David and King Long Li, had likely become hosts for the phantoms. They demonstrated extraordinary powers, to the point of easily outmaneuvering Tatsuya Kondou. Based on the final intelligence he sent back, their levels were estimated to surpass the Oni dragon tier. The reason for this conclusion was simple. Tatsuya Kondou was already considered one of the strongest individuals in this world. At that moment, Velgrynd mentioned that she knew Tatsuya Kondou and stated that he had actually crossed over to another world, where he fought fiercely for Rudra and ultimately met a proud end. Everyone present fell silent, mourning the loss of their fallen comrade. However, despite the term phantom being used, Velgrynd could not be sure whether the phantoms she knew and the ones they spoke of were the same entities. It was also worth noting that after Tatsuya Kondou crossed into the central world, his strength saw a significant leap, implying that the Oni dragon level in this world was not particularly powerful. Of course, even in the central world, there were few beings that Velgrynd could not handle. Velgrynd decided to carefully observe the situation and help this emperor navigate through the crisis, fulfilling Tatsuya Kondou's unresolved wishes. Alright, that's all for this video. Again, the author's fictional world has names similar to our real-world countries. While both are called Japan, the Japan Tatsuya Kondou came from and the Japan Rimuru came from are two different nations and separate worlds. It's also worth noting that Ajura, or Byakuya Araki, the founder of Hazy Style, was actually from this world, making him an otherworldly traveler who brought the sophisticated sword techniques of Hazy Style to the central world. When Rimuru first met Benimaru and his group, he was curious about the strong Japanese cultural elements present in the Oni race, which could have been influenced by Byakuya Araki. Although the names of these countries, characters, and power ranking systems differ greatly from those in TenSura's central world, there's no need to remember or dwell on these details. Just know that, in front of Velgrynd, they're all insignificant. This story mainly aims to provide additional background on Tatsuya Kondou, Hazy Style, Rudra's soul, and Korna. The next episode will delve further into these stories. It promises to be just as captivating. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you in the next one.